Afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here for KREM 2 News First at 4. I'm Whitney Ward. We are getting straight to our top stories this afternoon. Governor Jay Inslee announcing that other areas of the state will be reopening soon. This is a live look at his press conference right now. He says additional guidance is being drafted as we speak. The governor also announced 3 advisory groups that will help the state focus on reopening safely. The group will be made up of lawmakers as well as local and community leaders. He says a public health and healthcare system group also will allow the state to broaden testing for coronavirus to help prepare for another potential wave. A safe work and economic recovery group will also focus on the state's phased recovery plans. And a social support group will look over the increasing need for basic human services like food, housing, and health care. So Washington Governor Inslee also is being sued today. Several Republican state lawmakers filed a lawsuit against the governor's stay-at-home order. Those lawmakers say the governor simply cannot insist that there is a statewide emergency when the emergency, they say, has passed.
There's not an emergency in Washington anymore. It's actually really great news, and it's ridiculous that the governor is continuing on the course he's on.
Attorney Joel Ard says the governor's order should be targeted more toward those who are most at risk. He says there is a randomness in the order currently, and that is a constitutional problem.
When you tell people that they can go to a casino to entertain themselves and gamble, but they can't gather in a church, there's no health basis for that difference in decision, but it does infringe the First Amendment rights of those people to practice their religion.
In the meantime, a spokesperson with the Washington Joint Information Center says it is harder to reopen certain industries in heavily populated areas. The governor says the state, though, will evaluate reopening based on the virus's activity, the risk to vulnerable populations, testing capacity, and the healthcare system readiness and case and contact investigations. So phase 1 of reopening the state begins today. The governor's stay-at-home order is in effect until May 31st, but phase 1 is paving the way for certain businesses to reopen with some restrictions. So right now we want to break down what is open today. Washington State parks now open, although those parks will only be open for day use. Camping and overnight stays is still not allowed. City playgrounds will also remain closed. Fishing is allowed on public lands, though, starting today. Golf also back in session. Spokane County golf courses reopen today with a few changes to keep in mind. You need to call ahead for a tee time. You can't just drop in. Players can only play in pairs or singles. The exception is for families who live in the same household. The flag sticks have to be left in the hole. The clubhouse will allow only to-go orders. And coming up on KREM 2 News at 5 tonight, we're going to give you an in-depth look at how golf courses around the area are reopening and how they're making some of those changes. You can also get the latest by going to KREM.com or our KREM 2 mobile app. Northern Quest Resort and Casino also reopening today. However, about 50% of the casino slot machines are still turned off, and every other gaming table is closed to promote social distancing. Employees will wear masks, and they'll be cleaning off those slot machines after each and every use. Guests are encouraged to wear masks as well. The center bar and liquid is open for walk-up orders. The casino also opening only for limited hours. That's to allow for more time for cleaning. Phase 1 in Washington also allows for other businesses to gradually reopen. Social distancing and sanitation protocols, though, have to be in place before they can reopen. Those businesses, though, will be able to resume operations in the next few weeks as the state moves closer to phase 2. So the additional businesses right now include auto sales, curbside pickup for retailers, car washes, landscaping services, housekeeping, and pet walkers. Also, you'll note drive-through or drive-in spiritual services. Those too can reopen, but only one family can be in each vehicle. Large group gatherings are still banned. The next 3 phases will gradually allow gatherings, though, to increase in size. High school graduation right around the corner, kind of. Amid the coronavirus pandemic, though, comes an uncertainty of what freshman year of college could look like for many of those students. So according to a recent survey by higher education firm Simpson Scarborough, 20% of high school seniors now say they are likely not going to attend college in the fall so they can wait out the coronavirus. A quarter of those students are reconsidering the schools they plan to attend. More than 400 colleges and universities across the nation have now extended the deadline for students to make those decisions. And colleges are also transitioning to online learning. Locally, universities are making plans on how to reopen in the fall. Regina Ahn is joining us now live from the newsroom with what we know about what is coming in the fall and what they're planning to resume in person and what they're planning to continue online. Regina?
Well, Whitney, first let's break down how these colleges here in the Inland Northwest will choose to reopen this coming fall. Eastern says that most classes will resume online next fall, aside from certain courses. So, for example, courses like labs can't be offered online, so they will be held in class. Those classes will use methods that reduce health risks to students, faculty, and staff. That's what the university is saying. If health restrictions ease, a new plan will also allow for classes to resume in person. Students will be allowed to live on campus but only one person per room. Dining services will offer to-go options as well. Gonzaga planning to meet in person but with new protocols. University leaders announced a pandemic response task force. They'll manage the challenges associated with reopening. The task force will look at reducing class sizes, examining some operations of campus housing, dining, fitness center, along with the use of PPE. Then Whitworth also planning to meet in person, but with new safeguards in place. University president saying the returning to a full state of normalcy may not be possible. A task force will ensure the university uses the best safety practices and equipment. Faculty members and administrators are also working to develop academic alternatives for students who may need them. WSU has not announced their reopening plans yet, though university leaders say Kirk Schultz says in-person instruction is expected to resume. Across the state line, the University of Idaho planning on hosting in-person classes if the health department allows for it. In the newsroom tonight, Regina Ahn, Whitney, back to you.
All right, Regina, thank you very much. The class of 2020 graduation is going virtual this year, and the Obamas plan to headline that ceremony. YouTube is going to be hosting the Dear Class of 2020 celebration, and the former president and first lady plan to each deliver a speech to graduating classes. That's going to be on Saturday, June 6th at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. YouTube's celebration will also include speeches by Lady Gaga, Google CEO, former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, and many others. Former President Obama delivered several commencement speeches while in office, but hasn't done any since leaving the White House. As we switch gears to weather, man, it's warming up out there. Temperature is well into the 70s today. Some showers are still ahead, but hey, Tom Sherry is joining us now live, and I say we should just enjoy it while we can. Hey, I see you're outside. Isn't it gorgeous today?
It is. It's an absolutely beautiful day. We're looking for highs right around 70 degrees, and I wanted to get outside today because tomorrow, not so much. We're going to look for a huge drop in temperatures on Wednesday. We've got rain moving in, especially in the morning hours, and then some pop-up afternoon showers. It'll be windy on Wednesday, and as I mentioned before, much, much cooler. Let's get right to your day planner forecast right now, calling for an overnight low of 47 degrees. We'll see increasing clouds throughout the evening hours. Then we'll see a daytime high tomorrow of 60 degrees. Again, it will be a rainy, so watch out for the rain to start in the morning and then continuing at times in the afternoon. Checking the weekend forecast again, this is a very important weekend. It's Mother's Day weekend. I've got 73 on Saturday and 76 degrees expected on Sunday. So the fly in the ointment, so to speak, is going to be tomorrow with the windy, wet weather and cooler temperatures, but then we'll start tracking back up into the 70s just in time for a very important weekend. Whitney?
All right, Tom, thank you very much. Looking forward to hearing all about it. All right, closer to home here, one person is dead and another teen is in serious condition tonight after a car was found submerged in the Spokane River. This coming after witnesses last night helped rescue a teenage boy who had crashed into the river. That crash happened just after 11 o'clock last night. It was near South Riverton and North Cook. Spokane police say the driver hit a parked car and then crashed into the water. Officers say witnesses were able to run down the embankment. They jumped into the water to rescue everyone who was inside. They were joined then by 3 officers, and together they were all able to pull out one boy from that submerged car. Medics were able to stabilize him and also took him to the hospital. Investigators say speed and intoxication, though, did play a role. Officers will now determine exactly what charges to forward to juvenile court. Well, this was a story that rocked North Idaho and Eastern Washington, as well as the entire first responder community. It was 5 years ago today. Coeur d'Alene Police Sergeant Sgt Moore was on patrol in a neighborhood when he was shot and killed by an armed suspect. Sergeant Moore left behind a family along with many police officers who were friends and colleagues. Now, 5 years later, Sergeant Moore's memory still being kept alive in Coeur d'Alene. KREM 2's Taylor Vito first covered that story when it happened, and tonight he brings us another story looking back at the Sergeant Moore tragedy.
For some, it's sadly a story we're familiar with. A Coeur d'Alene father and first responder who was shockingly gunned down while protecting the community he served. For those who don't know of Sergeant Sgt Moore and his story, his memorial here at McEwen Park could be one place to start. Like this memorial, Sergeant Moore is an important piece of the community who won't be forgotten anytime soon. K27. At first glance, for some, the letter and number might not make sense right away. What does it represent? What does it stand for? Head to North Idaho, though, and you may quickly learn the importance K27 has to the community, a symbol that, 5 years later, is still painfully real for many. It was in early May in 2015 when the lives of not just one Coeur d'Alene family would change, but an entire community of first responders.
It was the heaviest of hearts that members of our police department honored Greg in the best way that they knew how.
5 years ago, Sergeant Sgt Moore, a veteran Coeur d'Alene police officer, was patrolling in this Coeur d'Alene neighborhood when he came across a suspicious person. Sergeant Moore performed a routine traffic stop, something he'd surely done hundreds of times before. But in an instant, it all changed.
At some point during the encounter, Sergeant Moore was shot.
Using a stolen gun, that suspect fatally fired at Sergeant Moore and then sped off in Moore's own police car, sparking a county-wide manhunt and chase. The suspect was eventually caught and convicted of the killing, and today is just one of 8 inmates on Idaho's death row. But 5 years after that killing, it's not the name of the suspect many choose to remember, but that of the slain hero.
He was taken from us doing what he did best, serving and protecting.
Sergeant Moore first joined the Coeur d'Alene Police Department around 2000. He quickly emerged as a leader, eventually becoming a school resource officer. Fellow cops told us Greg was a dedicated officer who lived his life as a loyal public servant. Sergeant Moore left behind a wife and 2 children.
We remember that they stood for the ideals and principles that everybody in uniform stands for.
If there's one principle that Sergeant Moore appears to have instilled in others, it was caring for the community. In the days after his death, many of you showed us how much Sergeant Moore meant to the inland Northwest. There were several fundraisers. People began putting blue lights on their porches, a nod to police. And that K27, that was Sergeant Moore's call sign, and it began appearing on car stickers and decals. And 5 years later, generosity is still there.
Well, he was a great man, had a great contribution to the community.
Coeur d'Alene Cellars, located just a stone's throw from the police department, printed these special labels in honor of Sergeant Moore. Proceeds of the wine support the Coeur d'Alene Police Foundation. The winery initially made 240 bottles, and they've been selling quickly.
A little sad, but at the same time, I'm grateful that we have a community that cares so much and that we can be a part of that.
As for the K27 stickers, they're still around. Glance at the back of a CDA PD cruiser and you'll see one, and head to McEwen Park. And you'll find the K27 Memorial, a series of waterfalls representing the values of respect, honor, and remember. 3 words representing a man who, of course, had countless qualities in the eyes of Coeur d'Alene, a father and community member remembered by many, and a first responder who will be remembered by many more to come. In Coeur d'Alene, Taylor Vito, KREM 2 News.